The sun hadn't quite crested the tree line when the base came to life. Cold mist clung to the gravel and steel. Boots thudded across metal walkways, and clipped commands echoed from drill sergeants as recruits rushed through morning formations. The air smelled of gun oil, exhaust, and damp earth standard for a NATO forward operations post tucked deep in the hills of Eastern Europe. Amid the organized chaos, she knelt alone in the far corner of the loading bay. Grease-smudged fingers moved with silent precision, dismantling an aging DMR rifle laid out on a tattered cloth. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, and her uniform wasn't standard, no name tag, no unit insignia. Just a faded black vest over a utility shirt so worn the threads looked like they'd forgotten color. She didn't speak, didn't look up, just worked. A few recruits passing by barely noticed her own nudged another. "Who the hell is that?" the other shrugged. "Some mechanic maybe. Civilian support." It was easier to file her under forgettable than question her presence. Corporal Denning, fresh out of officer school and eager to be noticed, paused as he passed. He looked her over, from her oil-slicked hands to the old rifle she handled like muscle memory. "Hey, wrench girl," he called, just loud enough for his buddies to hear. "You planning to join the war or just marry your toolbox?" His friends chuckled. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She kept polishing the bolt like it was part of her breathwork. The corporal waited for a reaction, didn't get one, and moved on with a scoff. "Creepy," he muttered. Behind her, the rhythmic stomps of marching recruits and shouted cadence echoed through the compound, but she remained fixed, assembling the rifle piece by piece. Each click of metal sounded crisp and deliberate, like punctuation marks in a language she didn't need to translate. A heavy shadow loomed as Drill Sergeant Hartley rounded the corner, clipboard in hand, barking names. His voice was gravel, his gaze sharp. When it landed on her, it paused. "Hey, you," he snapped, striding over. "What unit are you with? You're not on the log sheet, and where the hell is your rank?" She slowly rose to her feet, dusting off her palms against her thighs. Her movements were unhurried, not defiant, just steady. That's when it happened. As she stood, her vest shifted slightly in the morning breeze, and for just a moment, a small embroidered patch peeked from under the fold, faded but unmistakable. Black threads curled into the shape of an octopus, arms twisting around a downward trident. Hartley froze. It was a second, less, but it landed like thunder. His eyes locked on it, brows drawn low. "What is that?" he asked, not shouting now, but quieter. Lower. The recruits nearby didn't understand the shift, but they noticed the tension. The silence. One older tech stepped back from his station, his jaw slack. That's Kraken," he said under his breath. "That's not possible." Because Kraken wasn't real, not officially. A Black Ops unit so deep in the system, it didn't exist on paper. Whispers said they were ghosts in underwater armor, trained for recovery missions no one wanted to admit ever happened. They vanished years ago, disbanded, disavowed, a myth wrapped in steel and seawater. But the patch was real, faded, but sewn with purpose, not decorative, not cosplay. It belonged to someone who'd worn it into places that had no maps. The woman didn't explain, she just slung the DMR over her shoulder, adjusted her vest, and turned back to her crate. A soft clink of metal tools followed. No one dared speak again. And in that silence, a new kind of tension settled over the base knot, the kind you trained for. The kind that came when something old and buried just surfaced. By midday, the story had bled through every corridor like oil in water. The woman with the ghost patch, the octopus and trident, Kraken. No one had said it out loud in official tone, but the whispers rolled through the barracks, the mess hall, even the satellite control station, half laughter, half caution. Some recruits snorted at the idea. Kraken was a bedtime story for seasoned Black Ops, and a boogeyman for rookies who thought Navy SEALs were the end of the food chain. Others looked at the woman differently. Not with respect, not yet. But with unease. The way you look at something when you're not sure if it's a relic or a warning. She said nothing. She slept on the lower bunk of an empty bay, her rifle always disassembled beside her, pieces cleaned and aligned like a surgeon's tools. No personal items, no chatter. Just methodical precision. Weapons specialist Riggins, a man who never met a silence he didn't want to interrupt, strutted through the barracks with a grin too big for his face. He stopped near her bunk and tossed a dented canteen at the floor by her boots. Lost and Found's looking mighty comfortable, he announced to the room. A few nearby recruits chuckled, not out of humor but habit. Someone better tell the supply office, their toolbox wandered off. She didn't look up. She was cleaning her scope, breath slow and even, as if she hadn't heard him. The canteen rolled in a slow arc and tapped her boot. Still, no reaction. That seemed to bother him more than anything. The silence. He muttered something under his breath and walked off, but the eyes that had been watching her lingered. Later that day, a drone calibration team flagged a glitch in one of the surveillance units. The command center was understaffed. Sergeant Whitlow scanned the floor, eyes landing on her. "You," he barked. "You know your way around a Mark IV uplink?" She stood, didn't speak, just nodded once. They followed her to the drone hangar, expecting to watch her stumble. She didn't. She stepped past the blinking interface, crouched low, and opened the access panel like she'd done it 100 times blindfolded. Her fingers moved with intent, rewiring and bypassing the shorted system in under 2 minutes. No manual, no prompts, just instinct. A junior tech watched, jaw slightly open. Who are you?" he whispered. She didn't answer, just closed the panel, stood, and walked out. By dinner, the tension in the mess hall was thick enough to chew. Plates clattered, forks scraped, conversations stayed under breath. She sat alone near the back, her tray untouched. She wasn't trying to make a point, she was just, still, in a way that made others restless. And then the general arrived. Not a colonel, not a visiting diplomat. A major general, crisp in dress blues, flanked by aides and silence. The chatter died instantly. Chairs scraped, backs straightened. He walked through the line of tables like a tide through reeds, eyes cold and sweeping. Then he stopped. Right in front of her. She didn't stand. She didn't salute. She looked up, calm, one brow barely lifted. The general's gaze dropped to her vest. The patch. His face remained neutral, tight-jawed, and unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, memory, regret. He didn't speak. He just nodded once. A small motion, barely there, but deliberate. Then he turned and walked away. No medals, no handshakes, no orders barked. But the room felt it. Every single person. Like gravity had shifted. The laughter didn't return after that, not that night, not again. At dawn, the compound buzzed with the sharp-edged tension of something more serious than routine. The kind of day where drills stopped being drills and became something closer to war. The simulation was announced with a single clipped message over comms: full base OP, combat conditions, 500 start, no details, no mercy. Every team would be pushed to breaking. Forced marches, live fire blanks, malfunction scenarios, medevac procedures, comm disruptions, the works. Team Bravo gathered near the edge of the helipad, loading gear, syncing wrist transponders, double-checking magazine swaps. It was a unit known more for its cohesion than talent mid-tier performers with steady nerves. Until the roster shifted. Without warning, a name was added. Or rather, not a name, just a designation. Evans, C. No rank, no role, no explanation. A second lieutenant squinted at the tablet and frowned. She's not even cleared for combat sims. She's logistics, someone muttered. Probably never fired a live round. She doesn't even wear standard kit. But orders were orders. And when she showed up in her usual oil-stained vest and stripped-down gear, no one had the nerve to block her path. She said nothing. Just checked her rifle clean, assembled with purpose, and took her place at the rear of the formation. The simulation began with a 30-minute march through uneven terrain, gravel, mud, loose brush, and Team Bravo hit the first obstacle hard, a blown comm tower scenario. Scramble for alternate uplinks, patch into grid, move under cover. Two members started bickering over map routes, another dropped a relay pack. She stepped forward without a word, adjusted the grid coordinates on her wristband, and pointed northeast. "That's not even on the schematic," someone snapped. But they followed. 10 minutes later, her path cut through the underbrush directly into a blind spot between sensors. Her route shaved off 4 minutes and bypassed the fireline sensors the others had triggered. A sharp beep from HQ confirmed her call. Alternate route verified. Bravo in green. At the simulated casualty checkpoint, a dummy soldier with a compound fracture and a shredded comm relay lay beside a broken pack. The squad scattered, fumbling for gauze and code phrases. One recruit hesitated with the IV line. She crouched low, grabbed the kit, and patched the wound with duct tape and field wrap in less than a minute, all while splicing the relay cord with her own radio wire. No panic, no hesitation, just muscle memory. When the fire simulation flared up, mock gunfire, smoke grenades, and 3 drone intercepts, Team Bravo scrambled. 2 recruits ducked behind cover, shouting into radios. A third's rifle jammed, panic setting in. She pivoted, fired 2 shots from her own rifle perfectly placed to trigger the target sensor. Sand moved between cover lines like she'd walked that kill zone 1,000 times before. "Evans, what's your background?" the squad lead finally asked, his voice hoarse as they crossed the halfway point. She didn't answer, just pointed forward. "Final checkpoint. Evac logistics. Set up flare beacon, signal for heli extraction, secure perimeter." The squad hesitated, unsure of the frequency. She was already setting the beacon, adjusting dials like they were second nature. The evac signal pulsed. 5 seconds later, HQ pinged the all clear. Team Bravo was the first to finish. First by 9 minutes. When they reached the end zone, boots dragging, faces coated with sweat and confusion, she didn't join their cluster. She stepped to the side, checked her rifle again, and sat quietly on an overturned crate. Her hands were steady, her breath even. The rest of Bravo looked at her like she was something carved out of smoke and steel. Nobody clapped, nobody cheered. They just stood there in stunned silence, knowing full well they weren't the ones who'd won that drill. She was. The office was dark, save for the pale blue glow of the monitor. Outside, the base had gone quiet, the kind of hush that only came after a day that left people questioning what they thought they knew. Inside, the general sat alone at the desk, a glass of untouched scotch sweating beside a sealed file stamped with the old clearance code, Level Omega. It hadn't been opened in years. Not since the war nobody talked about, the missions nobody admitted happened. He flipped the seal with a slow, deliberate motion. The top document was brittle, the edges yellowed, the ink faded but legible. A photo slipped out between the pages. He picked it up. It was her. Years younger, face streaked with mud and blood, eyes hard with purpose. She was waist deep in frigid water, gripping the arm of a wounded hostage with one hand, while the other steadied a sidearm. Behind her, another figure slumped against a rock, face buried in her shoulder. Ice glistened off her vest. Beneath the photo, Claire Evans, Kraken Unit, Operation Black Deep, status, redacted. No rank ever listed, just a name and a symbol. The octopus, the trident, the ghost that never surfaced. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that came with the realization you just stumbled across a live wire disguised as a shadow. He didn't need a briefing to understand what he was looking at. He had seen the fallout from Black Deep, heard the names whispered in post-mission medical bays. A commander who completed a mission after her entire team was presumed dead. She brought 2 hostages out and didn't log a single complaint, didn't speak about it at all, just handed in her vest, and disappeared. Until now. He clicked a secure line, gave a set of coordinates, and said 2 words: initiate reinstatement, then hung up before the other end could respond. By nightfall, the compound's tone had shifted again, wordless but potent, the kind of tension that rolled beneath the skin like an underground current. Some of the recruits who had mocked her now stood straighter when she passed. Others couldn't meet her eyes. She walked into the logistics wing in the same old vest, but when she came out, something shimmered on her chest, a newly issued emblem. Clean, silver. A kraken, arms outstretched, wrapping the trident once more. There was no ceremony, no announcement, just a change, a recognition that needed no words. As she crossed the yard, a group of recruits fell into a makeshift line. No one commanded it. They just did it. One by one, they saluted. The same men and women who had tossed canteens, sneered at her hands, mocked her silence, now quiet, shoulders square, chins lifted. She didn't pause, she didn't nod. She walked straight through them like a tide parting stone. Not out of disrespect, just clarity. She wasn't there to collect apologies. She didn't need to be seen anymore. In the operations center, an entirely new set of files was being compiled. Names, recruits, assets, a new team roster, a unit without designation, yet. But at the top of the list, Commander C. Evans, call sign, Kraken et. Some unit don't die. They just wait beneath the surface. And tonight, Kraken had surfaced again.